Hey guys, I'm Chris.
Hey everybody, I'm Robert.
And we are the Film Flamers.
Bringing you yet another very hot, steaming take of the film.
We are just inches from the theater. Inches in time away from the theater.
I still feel like I'm in the theater, actually.
Yeah, it's dark and kind of warm, and my stomach feels kind of icky.
You know that feeling when you see a movie, right? Especially when you're seeing one in the middle of the day, and because you're in the theater and it's a very dark, contained place, and you're watching like some version of reality in front of it, and you step outside into bright, hot daylight, and you're just like, it's so jarring, you know?
Yeah, that's why I don't normally like matinees.
I like matinees just because there's usually fewer people there.
Anyway, hot take on 28 years later.
No, sorry. Got off the rails on that one a little bit.
The gays have to be like, it was hot. It's 102 degrees outside.
Yeah. So we saw 28 years later, a movie that Chris and I have been looking forward to seeing.
Mostly because it was like the best trailer I've ever seen in my life.
It was certainly the best trailer this year so far, and it really piqued our interest to see a movie that we were kind of flabbergasted about when we heard the news that they were making said movie.
I feel like they were going to do it eventually. It just would take some time. But the one that came naturally next was Years, right? And I was like, oh my God, we are coming back up on Years if you count like from 2002. So it hasn't quite been 28 years.
No.
But all these articles are out saying, like, why did it take so long for there to be a sequel to this franchise? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, it's not even 28 years. Pull yourself together.
I mean,
it's fine. We've gotten plenty of other zombie movies, and plenty of other zombie movies kind of like this, actually.
Yeah, well, I feel like Danny Boyle he did a little something for the zombie subgenre way back when he made 28 Days Later. And I feel like this sequel is kind of coming at just the right time because even I have felt like they kind of milked it dry.
Yeah.
And, you know, the zombie movies that we've gotten as of late have been either Walking Dead spinoffs, which are not really movies, but, and then like sad art house things.
That's true. Yes. And so this is bringing it back to kind of like, I don't know, a little bit of an epicness to it, right?
Yeah.
Which 28 Days Later did not have, right? 28 Weeks Later, you could argue, had a little bit of that.
Sure.
But the story's gotten bigger and grander as time goes on. And so has his, camera quality as we go through this franchise, going from like a 720p digital camcorder.
And now to an iPhone.
Yes, apparently.
Yeah, many iPhones.
Many iPhones.
Used to capture the things, the goings-on of this film. Danny Boyle's always been kind of a I don't know what the word, like a renegade rebel kind of filmmaker anyway.
Yeah, he's one of those, yeah.
So I feel like when it comes to his stories and when it comes to his like aesthetic, like one never knows what he's going to pull out of his hat, right? He can make a straightforward movie or he can make something like this, which can be kind of jarring and I don't know. I thought interesting. I thought the movie looked really good.
Oh yeah,
but there were some times when the editing kind of took me out of the movie just a little bit.
Yeah, this editing is kind of weaponized to make you anxious, but also it is used to intercut non-diegetic pieces of media from history. Or reenactments of history, which is kind of jarring and weird. For instance, as an example, when they're like, the boy is going out of the compound, for the first time as a coming of age thing, and he's gathering his weapons and figuring out what they're going to bring with him so that he can make his first kill or whatever, which is very reminiscent of things like The Road or Survival of the Dead or even Quiet Place 2, which ironically starred Gillian Murtagh, by the way. But, that's intercut with all of like the militarization of humankind and mankind through the years from medieval knights, it didn't really show much before then. It's almost like England's history of warfare or something.
Yeah, I would say this is a very contained kind of story when it comes to the rest of the world, and rightfully so. So I think we're going to try to stay away from as many spoilers as possible in this hot take, but there may be some, so as they might sneak in, so be careful of that. But obviously, this movie is about, like Chris said, a young boy and his father venturing off of an island into mainland Britain, which has seen the ravages of the rage virus, as it were.
Yeah.
And he is becoming a man.
Exactly. Of course, all the Rage people are still kind of in their prime. You know, they do not look 28 years later, except for the fat ones on the ground that are just kind of like barnacles growing on them, which you can kind of see in the trailer.
Mm-hmm. I think they kind of show that.
Yeah, and I was guessing that there was kind of new things going on with the Rage, and there might be still. It's kind of hinting at things, but nothing overt. So if you think something is maybe not what it is in the trailer, like think of it more of as a straightforward, so you don't get your hopes up that like there's some new creature or something like that. It's just not. We do get like this feeling of like these alphas, which I don't remember being in 28 weeks or days later.
No, I feel like any virus, the Rage virus, must have mutated in some kind of a way and is acting differently maybe when people contract it now. I don't know. We don't really get into that too much because, like Chris said, it's hinting at something as this was shot back to back.
It's hinting that they can reproduce or at least to care for their young in interesting ways. And that they go hunting for their young and almost like they're starting a new society in such a way that has also already kind of been done with a movie that we loved called The Girl with All the Gifts.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I did like that movie.
So it's going to be interesting to see if they do try and do something new. This is everything that's been done before, but within this franchise and just definitely very competently made and well cast.
Yeah, I would say so. So
with some weird fucking editing and soundtrack choices.
There's lots of weird sound editing choices in this movie, and that's not unlike Danny Boyle to do, you know? Like, I think he always has interesting sound qualities in his film and interesting song choices.
You'd think the weirdest would have been like
soundtracks.
His sci-fi films, Sunshine, but no, I don't remember any weird, sound effects in that.
Well, that was in space, so it had to be quiet. This was out in the woods, so obviously you're going to hear a bunch of random voices talking out of nowhere. I really thought that I was having some sort of like psychotic moment. I was just like, am I hearing things? And I thought the people next to me were talking, and I was like, no, that's in the film. Okay.
And there's flashbacks that reveal plot elements, and like that it seemed kind of almost juvenile in that way that it was edited. Like there's a point where a character is sleeping and a zombie's coming up, but you see like a mystery person like kill the zombie or whatever, and it finds out and it shows immediately in a flashback from no one's perspective of who actually did it, and it was just like that's a little like TV movie-ish, like for us to find out that way, in my opinion.
And I was also wondering about that particular moment because I was like, is this supposed to be a characterization thing, for the person and that killed the zombie?
Yeah, I almost feel like this is a very interesting director that kind of leans into Danny Boyle's worst instincts, or maybe most artistic instincts, depending on your subjectivity. Or Danny Boyle just lorded over a professional editor in the room. You never know.
That's quite possible. I feel like Danny Boyle really had his hands all over this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And rightfully so. I think that, when he and Garland teamed up again to come back and make this movie, I think they wanted to make something more like their original one.
And maybe he was almost apologetic, about how kind of rehashed this is over other zombie films and other post-apocalyptic films that have happened before, and wanted to just put his own stink on it. But the only way he could, outside of Alex Garland's script, was to literally just make it fucking weird with the editing and the sound effects and soundtrack. Because there's also music, like with lyrics and shit that is going on while they're trekking across the countryside or like in a fight, like punk rock and shit like that. And it's just kind of almost dated in a way in that sense. Yeah. Which kind of makes sense, I guess, because this whole island is kind of stuck in time from 30 years ago, right? Or more specifically, 28 years. But we do see how the rest of the world has kind of moved on, which is kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, like we kind of learn within this movie that everything is contained to Britain, and the people who are left on Britain are quarantined. They cannot go anywhere forever, right? Yeah. So like their society is their own, and it's sort of like stuck where it's at. And this movie does get increasingly more weird as it goes on, which I think is kind of signature Danny. But
yeah, and now I'm just thinking about and digesting it still, and thinking about what we've just been talking about, and I'm just like literally has been taking everything that we've learned in the zombie genre over the last 28 years, right? Yeah, or 24, 25 years, whatever it's been. Yeah, and that those movies like The Road and some of this that actually probably took from 28 days later and 28 weeks later, right? So it's like art imitating life or whatever, you know, to a certain extent. At the same time, though, I do wish it was doing something slightly new, even though it is a very nice, polished, well-constructed movie. And I do have a lot of anticipation for the next one because I think that's where a lot of the original stuff is going to happen. This was all just kind of laying the groundwork.
Yeah, this is like 2 hours of exposition kind of, you know, and characterization, really, because this is the story about this young boy, like sort of becoming a man and realizing the world that he lives in, right? I mean, it's a classic coming of age story sort of told from two sides. Like one is like a father pushing sort of this militaristic kind of masculine coming of age, and then a little bit more of a sensitive coming of age. And I think like you really have to have both sides of that when you have something, that kind of a good story to tell. I think it's important. And this movie is really divided between a first half and a second half. I will say that I like the second half a lot more, you know, because I like my coming of age stories to be twinged with emotion, you know, as opposed to physicality. And I think that he learned a lot more when you're talking about emotions in life as opposed to talking about death, right? Or learning about death in other ways. And I mean, I thought the second half was really good and much more of a horror movie even.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, some choices were made in this as far as story goes. And I kept having to remind myself while watching this movie that there is a second part coming out next year.
I started remembering that about 3/4 the way through. I was like, this isn't really going anywhere fast.
Nope.
Right. As far as like the main characters and such. I think it really got to a place where we're talking about, you know, humanity, at least on Britain, like in different ways, kind of memorializing and mourning for itself,
right?
You know, in different ways. And we're also seeing how society kind of collapses in on itself a little bit in healthy ways, or even, I don't know if we've seen any kind of seedy underbelly of the island society yet. I do notice that there's some interesting, you know, I don't know if it's just Scottish Highlands celebrations and stuff, but there's some weird mask stuff going on that wasn't super explained. And then now at the very end of this, you know, there's something else that's kind of revealed that could allude to something much larger, but we don't know. It has to do with kind of the bookend of the film itself. So obviously this is going to be a big kind of epic, right? This is going to be maybe the first zombie epic, you know. I think Zack Snyder is somewhere rolling in his early grave, but
yeah, he tried his hardest.
He tried.
And failed.
But he rehashed Aliens, so fuck him.
Oh my God. Danny Boyle, though, is not a failure when it comes to directing and creating a story, nor is Alex Garland. And so, like, I really felt like even though there is a second movie coming and this seemed to be going nowhere fast, like you said, and I agree with that, like it still felt like a contained kind of story. You know, they cliffhanger where they need to, and everything is kind of set up, you know, for the next installment, which Danny Boyle is not directing. I did not know this until we sat down to record. So Nia DaCosta has directed the second one, which is now in post-production. And so for those of you who don't remember, she directed the Candyman remake from a few years ago.
What else?
I don't know what else she's done. She must have done some other things.
The Marvels, that's what I thought.
Oh, she did direct The Marvels.
Yeah, she directed The Marvels. That's what I thought.
Apparently, she's also working on an adaptation of the play Hedda Gabler, so that's interesting.
Maybe that was something else.
She makes all kind of genre of film. But, I mean, she is a competent director. You know, Candyman was a decent movie. I thought it was well made. So I think, you know, working with Danny Boyle, who's producing this next movie, and Alex Garland has written the script for it, like, I feel like we're probably in safe hands in some kind of a way.
Okay.
Because I don't remember how much input Garland and Boyle had on 28 Weeks Later.
She must have been handpicked.
I would imagine Danny Boyle would do that.
Yeah. And it's strange because she's an American filmmaker. You would have thought they would be doing like an upcoming British filmmaker to kind of keep it in the fam.
Or maybe they wanted an American sensibility on that.
I don't know.
Who knows? We'll have to find out next year when it comes out.
Maybe she approached them and was just like, give it to me.
Here's my vision, Danny.
Show me your Boyle. Gross. I'll make it all better.
Because it all better. I'm invested though. So, I mean, like I want to see where this is going because it kind of gets kind of bonkers toward the end, everybody. And bonkers in a Danny Boyle movie is usually a good thing to me. So, I mean, bring it on.
She has not made a great film. Like, I don't understand how she keeps getting this level of work. Out of nowhere, she got The Marvels. And that was not a great film.
No.
And it was not reviewed as such. And Candyman, I liked it a lot. I think I liked it more than anyone else. I think I gave it like a 4-star, but it wasn't great.
No, you gave it a higher star rating than I did.
I did. Mm-hmm. You know, so I don't know what's going on.
We'll have to see. I mean, everyone has to have the chance to make their first masterpiece, you know?
I guess so, but like this is riding the coattails of someone else's franchise, you know, it's just like The Marvels was and just like Candyman was. There it is. There's the pattern.
And then she's doing an adaptation of Hedda Gabler, which is like classic drama.
A competent but half-assed sequel or remake to your existing franchise. Nia DaCosta.
Oh, wait. I have Nia's number. Hold on. You want to do this? I have the person for you. We'll have to see, though.
Do you want it to make $1 billion, but to get 50% on Rotten Tomatoes? What's more important, critical or money? Nia will get you the money.
Well, apparently money. I don't know. This movie right now has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So it's still doing fairly well. Critically, it's very highly praised. So I'm interested to see how much money it makes. I'm sure it will make a lot, as horror movies have been like killing it in 2025.
At the same time, they're all, you know, they all have these like water cooler moments now. Like the brothers who did Talk to Me and now more recently Bring Her Back definitely have those water cooler moments that people go out and talk, you know, and bring people back into the theater. Like, oh my God, I could barely, people walked out and I barfed, you know, that makes people want to go see it. Yeah. Right. No one's going to say that, I think, about this movie.
No, I think this movie's a little bit more artsy than the average
a little more
film goer.
Conventional in that sense. Yeah. Danny Boyle is not interested in the social media, like clippable moment type of situation.
He wants to tell his story, and that's all he really cares about.
Yeah. So does Alex the Garland.
That's right. And I can respect that in filmmaking. You know, make the movie you want, make your art. You know, you do you, boo.
Unless you're Nia.
Unless you're Nia DaCosta, then make somebody else's art. It's really unfair of us to say since we haven't seen the movie yet, but I mean, track record is track record.
So the podcasters, the bottom feeders that discuss everyone else's work.
Hey, you know what? There's a very...
Fuck it. I'm Team Nia. America. Fuck yeah.
There's a very important place for criticism in society. We fill a very important niche when it comes to the creation of art.
Yes. And our paycheck relative to Alex Garland,
I mean...
mirrors reality.
That's right. Fractions. Did you rate it yet?
I did.
Okay, what did you give it?
So I ran a few scans and it actually came up with 3.5. And I was like, no, it deserves better than that because its the best moments are so good.
Yep.
You know, and its visuals are so good when they are, you know, but like there's also like, it's just inconsistent.
Yep.
Right. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to vibe this. I also said it wasn't important. Right, which I think almost is debatable for this franchise to come back almost 28 years later for a 28 years in thing, you know? It's a little on the nose. They do reference themselves a little bit, which is eye-rolling. Like the end almost ruined it for me because I was like, this is a masterpiece. And then at the end, I was like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad ending. It's really literally not. It's just like the style of it was just kind of like really jarring. Anyway, so I bumped it manually up to a 4-star.
I also gave this movie 4 stars. For very, very similar reasons, because like halfway through the movie, like right after that first half, you know, with daddy and son, I was just like, no, I was like, this is not what I wanted to see at all. And then the movie went on and it found a really hard emotional core. It made me cry 2 times.
Oh,
and, I like that. And the thing is that, you know, Saint Rafe shows up and in all his like acting glory, like sort of like saves this movie and pushes it into 4-star territory. And I'm like, okay, good movie, you know, 4 stars easily for its like original kind of like look and feel. And then the acting I think is good. I think that kid actor does a really good job. Yeah. And I think that's worth it. And I do think it's kind of important only because of like the space and time it took for one movie to be made and then its sequel to be made. a spiritual sequel. No, it's an actual sequel.
It's an actual sequel, yeah.
And I think that you could almost disregard that second one
by the same director 25 years later. It's like in actuality, if we look back, like I feel like that is important, right? So that would make my 4-star based on that rating calculation. But it's like we wanted George Romero to come back and he did. He would come back and do Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, and they just weren't as good.
No, they weren't.
As his original stuff, and certainly his first 2 films. Nothing came close to his first 2 films. You could even argue the third, right? As far as the Night of the Dead stuff, right? Of the Dead. But I think this stands with 28 Days and Weeks Later. They're all 3 very different films.
Yeah.
But I feel like in different ways, they're almost equal to each other, 28 Days being the most visceral. But this is almost a return to form from the weeks that we had.
Yep.
And so, like, this is it's going to be a quadrilogy, I guess, for lack of a better word. That's what they call the Alien one.
Until they made more of them.
Alien quadrilogy. Yeah, so it's going to be a legit, and like I feel like they're all really quite good. Although I don't think Danny Boyle directed the second one.
He did not, and nor did Garland write it.
No.
So
they blessed it.
Yeah, well, I think they had to. Studios exist.
Anyway, this is a long hot take.
It is.
Go see it. If you have any kind of investment into 28 Days Later or 28 Weeks Later, and you have that nostalgia or want to see what Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are up to, who are still extremely viable, active, directors. I would say Alex Garland, now of all times is like in his heyday.
Oh, he's
just making whatever the fuck movie he wants at this point.
He's got a long career ahead of him.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, and Danny Boyle does still too.
So like, it's very interesting. But if you are wanting to go see, Macintosh Mugglebones, he is not in this film.
No.
Neither is Cletus, whatever his name is. Cillian Murphy.
Well, he's probably dead.
He's in the other franchise. He gave up on this one and joined A Quiet Place.
Yeah. I think that just about wraps up this hot take on 28 Years Later. As Chris said, we say go see it. And we want to know what you think about the movie when you do. So go find us on social media at The Film Flamers, on Blue Sky, on Threads, on Instagram, on Facebook, all the places.
You can email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com or call our hotline at 972-666-7733. Call us and we'll introduce you to Cletus.
Take me off island and make me a man.
I'll show you my Boyle.
I'll show you
Danny's Boyle. Anyway, this cut in front of the line ahead of our Pride special, which apparently we're holding on to for the end of the month. Which is, of course, The Bride of Frankenstein. So hold on next week. And then, of course, we also have Patreon coming out.
That's right. So a poll is up over on patreon.com/thefilmflamers. So head over there, join the family, help us choose which gayish Frankenstein film we're going to be watching this month, and catch all those other bonus episodes.
Yeah.
Well, Chris.
Well, Robin.
I feel as though I've recently lived 28 years, so I need to go off and have some sweet dreams.
Jesus.
It wasn't recent. The 20 years that I've lived.
So it's been 23 years.
Yeah.
It's been 23 years.
That's how fucking old we are.
Yeah.
I
had the camera they shot this on 23 years ago.
I have seen all of these movies in the theater as an adult,
yes.
As a drinking age adult.
Oh, was that drinking age?
No.
Oh, I was like 19.
Yeah. But I could have had a beer right after watching that.
I'm a geriatric millennial.
And I'm just Jerry.
You're a juvenile Gen X. And you're just Jerry.
I love labels.